Hey friends, welcome back. My name is Kim, and this video is an original book tag from Suey over Suey's Book Banter to celebrate her birthday, her 60th birthday, and it's called the Big 60 Book Tag. So happy birthday month, Suey. Thanks so much for creating this tag. I read over the prompts and was scoured my shelves to answer some of the questions and also did a little bit of Googling as well. So we will just jump right in here. So the first question is, what is a comfort read you will never outgrow? And I think when I think of comfort read, I think of a book that I have read multiple times and continue to go back to and still get the same joy or same feelings every time I read it. Now, I am trying to reread my books a lot more often, um, but I've reread a couple of them, and the one that I have reread and I love, I've loved both times I've read. I've only reread it. Well, I've reread it once, so I've read it for a total of two times. Sorry, that was a really complicated way to explain that. But that is Tin Man by Sarah Winman. I feel all the feelings when I read this. I don't know, it's a perfect combination of like sadness and kindness. The blurb on the front perfectly captures it. It says, breaks your heart and warms it all at once. That's from Matt Haig. And sometimes book blurbs are quite deceiving, but I think that that perfectly captures your reading experience with this book. Basically, we follow, oh, who is it? Which character is it first? Sorry, hang on. It's either Michael or Ellis. Yes, okay. So we follow Ellis, and you meet Ellis, and you find out that his wife Annie has died. And you also come to learn that Michael, Ellis, and Annie were all very close friends. They were quite the close trio. And in present day, Annie's passed away, and Michael is nowhere to be found. You get past timelines of when Annie and Ellis are married, and Michael is nowhere to be found as well. And so, really, it's just a slower paced story that really brings everything all together. Like, where was Michael in all these years? What happened to everybody? Why are the three of them not together anymore? Or, just generally what had happened. And yeah, it's a really heartwarming, kind, sad book all at the same time. So I would say that that is definitely, I think this is a comfort read that I'm not going to outgrow because yeah, I don't know. I just love it. Every time the last time I reread it, like this is my own copy, and I just underlined a ton of sentences that I just really liked the way that they were written and the themes within here. Rereading it was a really interesting experience because I could pull so much more from it too, which is the point of rereading. So that would be my comfort read that I hope to never outgrow. Ask me in 10 years though. We'll see. Okay, and then the next question. This is the one that I had to do a little bit of Googling for, and it is what is a book that was published in the decade that you were born? I was born in the 90s, and there were some very notable books that were published in the 90s. Just to name a few, Infinite Jest. I have not read that yet. I don't know that I'm interested in reading it, but I know it is like a very pivotal book, or at least like what would be the right term, like a canon book, or just like a book that really was stream of consciousness. I think, I don't know, I haven't read it, so I should probably stop talking about it. And then The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I tried to read that book and DNF'd it. Yeah, I don't know. Me and Dark Academia just don't really get along, I don't think. I've tried to read it in a couple of different ways, not just The Secret History, but Dark Academia itself, and it just never quite lands for me. So, yeah. And then Game of Thrones, I haven't read it, but obviously that is, everybody knows Game of Thrones, Fight Club, and Outlander. So, all those books were published in the 90s. Yeah, which is interesting. Okay. The next question is, what is a book you would rate 6 stars in a 5-star system? So, obviously, I think at this point, I would rate Tin Man 6 stars. I think this is a perfect book. My only critique maybe would be that there was like a little bit of a lull in here with the story at one point, but like that's not really, everything serves a purpose in here. Every page, every kind of the way the way the story goes serves a purpose ultimately, and so it's very intentionally written. So for me to say like, oh, it kind of lulled at one point, it's like that's just me like, I don't know, being nitpicky, I suppose. But I think that this is a 6-star read for sure. And there's some other books that I have within this stack that I pulled from my own shelf, and even just looking over my story graph that I think have the potential to be a 6-star read, I suppose. And that is like, I think, a book that really stands the test of time. And even upon reread, it's still enjoyable for the same reasons that I initially read it. So yeah, Tin Man for sure, 6-star read. Okay. What is a favorite book from your 6 most read genres? My first thought when I read this question was like, do I read from 6 genres? So I had to again go to Storygraph and really like, they have like a graph of a ton of different genres, even subgenres that, you know, are within overarching genres. And this was quite, this was no small feat to gather this information, that's for sure. So, first and foremost, a thriller is the one genre that I have read the most books from, mystery and thrillers. And I would say my favorite book probably from the thriller genre. And I've actually reread this one too, and I did enjoy rereading it. And rereading thrillers is quite interesting because you know what's going to happen. So really, you're reading it for maybe the writing or just to see how the author lays out Easter eggs or just kind of paints the mystery of everything going on. So I would say Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. This was really a pivotal read for me to get into thrillers. There's a few authors and books specifically that really helped me get into thrillers. One of those being Sherry Lapina. This book specifically, this was like mind blowing when I read it initially. I thought it was, I still think this is one of the best thrillers that I have read. Whether it stood the test of time, I have to reread it to find out. But basically, you follow along with what is her name, Jules, and she gets a job being a apartment sitter, basically at the Bartholomew. But weird things start happening in this apartment building, and she makes a friend with another apartment sitter in the building, and that person goes missing. And yeah, I really appreciated this thriller quite a bit. It was, I think it was also my introduction to Riley Sager, if I'm not mistaken, potentially, and it really drew me to read the rest of his books. But yeah, excellent book, thriller specifically. All right, and then literary thriller. I think that this deserves kind of like a genre place of its own, obviously, because a thriller, literary thriller, and thrillers are paced differently and written differently. And I appreciate those two genres for different reasons. So for literary thriller, and me being me, I couldn't just pick one book for my favorite, but I would say that I think a true literary thriller that I read is The Conjoined by Jen Suk-Fong Lee. I did a book review video on this, so I won't touch on it too much, but I really loved the writing in it, and I just, yeah, I really savored the reading experience with that, and just the way that the story was told. It wasn't such a perfect, neat, and tidy mystery, but I really enjoyed the writing. And Jen Suk-Fung Lee, I believe, has come out with another book this year, which is on my list of things to eventually get to. The other, maybe literary thriller potentially, is The Quiet Tenant by Clemence Michelin. This is, yeah, this is dark, this is gritty, this is atmospheric at times. You follow 3 different perspectives, all with different points of views in each of those chapters. And they all kind of center around this man who is really not a good man. You follow the perspective, I believe, of, yes, his, the girl he has kidnapped, I believe his daughter, and then a girl from that works at a local bar who has a crush on him. all different perspectives. And yeah, I really loved the way that this book was crafted. I thought it was very clever. I thought it was unique. I was underlining and annotating a ton of things on my e-reader when I was reading this. And yeah, I eventually will want to reread this. But yeah, that was also very good. I would consider that a literary thriller because it's not so twisty and turny. It's definitely more the way that the story is delivered rather than like shock value or twists kind of a thing. The next one that I read from the most is the contemporary or literary fiction. What are your guys' thoughts on the difference between contemporary fiction and literary fiction? I feel like there is a difference in there, but it's not something that I can like put words to at this time. I don't know, side conversation. But anyway, so a contemporary literary fiction that I would recommend is Mame. I read this earlier this year, did a book review video on that, so I won't touch on it too much. But I do remember the emotions that I felt when reading this book, and the journey that I went on. Excellent, excellent novel. Next is horror. And I read this a few years ago. Still stands the test of time in my brain. Have yet to reread it, but Brother by Anya Alborn. This was very gritty. This was very gritty and almost literary in its own way with the writing. Not overly graphic per se, but I think it's graphic in the sense where you know what is happening without it being explicitly explained to you, which is scary in its own way and horrific. I really appreciated the character arc in this book and following along with our main character, Michael, I believe. Yeah, Michael. And he grows up in this family that has a very interesting pastime, I will say, and he wants better for himself eventually. He meets a girl at a local, I think it was a gas station or a record shop, and yeah, she kind of spurs in him this desire to want something more, want something different. And yeah, it was just a heartbreaking ending too. So I absolutely love this. Definitely, definitely is a horror. And the horror that I read is not like bloody, gory, graphic, like not graphic horror, but definitely more subtle horror, I would say. I don't know if that's a thing or not. And then as for romance, I am super picky when it comes to romance. I am, yeah, a harsh critic when it comes to it. If it's not working for me, I am going to put it down right away. However, the one author that is like my tried and true is Abby Jimenez, but specifically just for the summer, I read this last year. And it has, yeah, all of these books obviously have stood the test of time in my head. But this was just this is the third book in the Part of Your World series, which is 3 books. And you could read the books independent of each other, but this book was the last one in that series. And I think that if you've read the other 2 books in her Part of Your World series, which is Part of Your World and then Yours Truly, it just makes you appreciate this last book so much more. It caps off the series in such a really wonderful way. And yes, it is chunky, but it reads really quickly. I really love the way that Abby Jimenez incorporates real life problems and the way that people would truly actually maybe approach them or deal with them, whether it be through avoidance or maybe through other ways. And yeah, she writes male characters that are very endearing as well, and you just root for the 2 love interests to be together all the time. Yeah, I don't know. I love it. Yeah, I love her romances. I have yet to read one that I don't enjoy, which is kind of scary when you think about it. It's almost making me avoid picking up more of her books because I'm like, I feel like I've reached the peak of. It's like Riley Sager. I think Lock Every Door by Riley Sager is his claim to fame, the best book he's written. And all of his other books are just super hit or miss for me, truly. So it's a little bit nerve-wracking picking up more of his books in the same way that Abby Jimenez is for me a bit. So anyways, okay. Now, I was surprised when I looked at my story graph and was looking at like the 6 genres that I read the most from. So we got thriller, literary thriller, contemporary / literary fiction, horror, romance, and then I was expecting sci-fi and or fantasy to be that remaining fiction genre. But surprisingly, it's actually nonfiction. And I don't read a ton of nonfiction. I don't gravitate towards it. It's not something that I like am craving to read or have a like hankering to read from. But I will say that when I saw the amount of nonfiction books I had read, I was like, oh wow, like I have read quite a bit over my time of like reading. Like as an adult, here I am, right? So I do have a couple of nonfiction recommendations. Some of them are heavier toned. One of them being Lolita by Alison Wood. This is Alison Wood's account of her time in school and her relationship with her teacher. I don't even want to call it a relationship, but yeah, if you know Lolita, you kind of know what this book is generally going to be out. I thought it was heartbreaking. I thought it was horrific in its own way, and just very powerful, and not something I necessarily would opt to reread in the future, but I think that it's a really important story. And by that I mean, like, I say I wouldn't reread it not from a place of like I didn't enjoy it. It's just it was a difficult read in its own way, as most of these nonfictions that I'm going to talk about are, but they're all very important in their own way and stories that should be told. So that's one. And then I do have a couple. This one is a memoir slash fiction, and that is Split Tooth by Tanya Tagaq. I'm just going to read what this book is about on the back. I've read this many, many years ago. I do remember being very like emotionally impacted by it, but as far as like specific ways to explain what this book is about, I'm not the best at it. It's about a girl who grows up in Nunavut in the 1970s. She knows joy and friendship in the love of her parents. She knows the tedium of everyday world and the raw immoral power of the ice and sky, the seductive energy of the animal world. She knows the ravages of alcohol and violence at the hands of those she should be able to trust. She sees that she sees the spirits that surround her and the immense power that dwarfs all of us. When she becomes pregnant, she must navigate all of this. Haunting, brooding, exhilarating, and tender all at once, Split Tooth moves effortlessly between fiction and memoir, myth and reality, poetry and prose. Tagaq conquers a world and a heroine readers will never forget. Yeah, I just found this absolutely profound when I read it, and I would absolutely agree with that line in here about it moves effortlessly between fiction and memoir, myth and reality, poetry and prose. Yeah, it's an incredible read. Heartbreaking in its own way too. So yeah, that is one. And then the other one is a poetry collection, if you're into poetry, and that is The Red Files by Lisa Bird Wilson. It's a very short little read, but even though it's short, I found this to be very powerful in its own way, and there were definitely quite a few pages in here that kind of left me thinking about what she had written, and left an imprint on me, basically. And same thing for this one. I'm going to read what the back is about off the back of the book. Inspired by family and archival sources, Lisa Bird Wilson assembles scraps of a history torn apart by colonial violence. The collection takes its name from the federal government's complex organizational structure of residential schools archives, which are divided into black files and red files. In vignettes clear as glass beads, her poems offer affection to generations of children whose presence within the historic record is ghost-like, anonymous, and ephemeral. Yeah, absolutely incredible read. Especially if you're Canadian, I would recommend either one of these. I would recommend both of these books. But this one I found to, yeah, definitely leave a very lasting impact on me. And it was one of the first poetry collections I have read too, and so it's also very approachable in that way too. All right, so those are a little bit heavier nonfiction reads, but if you want a nonfiction that is a little bit on the lighter side because I had gathered them and I was like, wow, all these are really sad and heavy in some ways. I would recommend A Year in the Woods by Taborn Eklund. I read this a couple years ago, really loved it. Basically, it's Taborn's efforts to spend more time in nature. And what he ends up doing is spending one night in the woods for one night in the woods per month for an entire year. And so he experiences all the seasons winter, spring, summer, fall, everything. And he goes into detail about the seasonal changes he sees because he goes back to the same spot every single month. You see him experience the beginner hiking and camping kind of fails, you know, being ill prepared for maybe some of the weather and whatnot. And yeah, I bought this book when I was also making an effort to spend more time outside. And so it definitely resonated with me in that way. But yeah, it was a great read. Definitely recommend. All right. And what is the next question here? What is a book you knew you would love even before you opened it? In other words, a book you had a sixth sense about. Seeing the theme of the sixes, this is very clever, Suey. The one book that I had a sixth sense about was Father of the Rain by Lily King. I read Writers and Lovers by Lily King first, and then I was looking through her previous novels and saw this one. And this is about, I'm just going to read off the back because the way I would summarize it is like with my own lens, but I just want to read what I had read and what sold it to me. In her sharply insightful third novel, Lily King traces a daughter's relationship to her volatile, charismatic father over 3 decades. From her parents' separation in her childhood, Daly Amory has had to choose herself over her father in order to survive. That is, until he hits rock bottom, and Daly must decide whether trying to save him is worth the risk of losing her professional dreams and the love of her life. What drew me to reading this book was the fact that it spans 3 decades and is only this long. It spans 3 decades and it takes a in-depth look into a father-daughter relationship. I have found that I really enjoy reading books that have a heavy emphasis on like parental relationships in general, good or bad. I just think, you know, there's nothing like such sharp insights into a relationship that can be strained, can be healthy at times, or just be overall complex. And I think it's also something that's relatable potentially for a lot of readers to have complex relationships with their parents. But I just thought the delivery of the story was incredible. There was a time where I cried. This was, I think, one of the first books that I have read where I had like full on tears streaming down my face and during a portion of this. And yeah, I just thought it was absolutely incredible. I know that the last sentence here says losing her professional dreams and the love of her life. There's something about Lily King books that are kind of like pitched as having this like romance storyline in them. And yes, there is some romance in her books, but I always like whenever I talk about her books, I always try to emphasize like the romance is not the main point. You're following along with the female main character and inside her own thoughts and her development, and she's trying to navigate something. And I just think the way she delivers that to be really well. I think if readers go in hoping for some kind of strong romance, especially with Writers and Lovers, I think people expect a very strong romance with that one more so than anything. You're going to be disappointed. But anyways, this was one that I had a sixth sense about. I just felt like I was in the mood to be in my feelings and picked it up, and sure enough, absolutely loved it. So yeah, okay. Now, what is a book you would recommend to the next generation of readers? I really liked this question. So I thought it was interesting because I was like, okay, what would I recommend to the next generation of readers? Because which is no small feat as well, because the book you pick and the themes it has says something too. So the one that I would recommend two books to the next generation of readers. Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead by Emily Austen, and Tin Man by Sarah Winman. Reason being is because I think these books have a amount of kindness within the story, within the sadness that's going on, that is very hopeful in a way. Like, even upon reread, and I'm feeling sad when I'm reading this, and I'm kind of like, oh, Alice, like, like Annie and Michael. Um, or even within this story, and following along with the character who is going through some mental health issues, and she's just kind of fumbling through life and happens to get a job at a church. Um, and she's trying to navigate that. And in Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead has also some humor to it and is funny at times as well. So it's kind of got that lightheartedness sprinkled in amongst all this like sadness that's going on. And then in here we have characters, side characters that aren't even like super pivotal to the story necessarily, but they extend kindness to the main characters in here, Ellis and Michael, at some point. And it's just like, it's just very warm-hearted in a way. And so I think it can be easy to get caught up and focus on sad things that are happening or heavier things that are happening, but to remember that like extending kindness and finding humor in things, we can find those things. And so I would recommend either one of these books, because I would also say, like, in a cheesy way, like, don't worry, the story is going to end in a way that makes you feel like warm and hugged and like kind of taken care of in a way. Super, super cheesy, but I would definitely recommend that to the future generations, both of those books. That's just from my own shelves, and mostly because I think that both of those books definitely have aspects that I really enjoy in certain books. And one of that is being like, yes, they're sad, but there's also some kindness or little sprinkles of humor here and there. So, all right. Well, I think that that is pretty much it. I will tag a few people. I know, Suey, you went ahead and tagged quite a few people, including myself. There might be some overlap with the people that I tag as well, but I'm going to do it anyways. Thanks so much for tagging me to do this, and happy birthday again this month. I hope whatever day your birthday falls on in this month, it's a wonderful and relaxing day. But thank you so much for watching and hanging out a little bit. If you are watching this and you also watch Suey's channel and you want to do this tag, feel free to go ahead and do so. I think that this was a very, very lovely way to celebrate somebody within the community. So anyways, okay, I hope you are enjoying what you're reading, and I will see you in the next video.